By 2037, Fortune 500 companies will have their first AI CEOs. And the board members voting them in? They're in those boardrooms right now.
We're not talking science fiction. McKinsey's 2024 report shows 63% of executives already trust AI for strategic decisions over human intuition.
The transition is happening faster than the shift from monarchies to democracies, and we're living through the early stages.
I interviewed at a company last month where the hiring algorithm rejected me, never spoke to a human. That's already here.
Exactly. And here's what nobody's talking about when your CEO is an algorithm. Who do you negotiate with? Who do you appeal to?
Actually, the data suggests AI CEOs might eliminate 90% of middle management within the first year. Not because of malice, just pure efficiency optimization.
Historically, every major shift in leadership structure created upheaval. The Industrial Revolution, the Corporate Revolution, now this.
Today we're diving into something that's going to affect every single person listening. What happens when the person or thing making decisions about your career, your salary, your future isn't human? We're talking AI CEOs in 2037. And honestly, the timeline might be even shorter.
Right, and we're going to break down what the research actually shows. Not the hype, not the fear-mongering, the real data about how companies are already preparing for this.
And I've been looking at historical patterns, how societies adapted to previous leadership revolutions. Because this isn't humanity's first rodeo with power structure changes.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the human side. Like, what does it feel like to work for something that doesn't understand you took care of your sick kid last night, that you're grieving, that you're human?
So let's start here. Iris, walk us through what an AI CEO actually means. Because I think people hear that and imagine like a robot sitting in a corner office.
Right, so it's not a physical entity. Think of it as a decision-making system that processes massive amounts of data, financial reports, market trends, employee performance metrics, competitor analysis, and then makes strategic decisions. Recent studies from MIT and Stanford show that AI systems already outperform human CEOs in quarterly earnings predictions by 18%.
But here's where it gets interesting. CEOs don't just make financial decisions. They inspire. They navigate politics. They make judgment calls based on incomplete information. Can an algorithm do that?
That's the billion-dollar question, right?
Okay, but let's be real for a second. I've worked under some pretty terrible human CEOs, like people who made decisions based on ego, or who played favorites, or who genuinely didn't understand the day-to-day reality of their employees.
Exactly. And that's actually one of the main arguments for AI leadership. A 2023 Harvard Business Review study found that 47% of employees don't trust their leadership to make unbiased decisions. And AI doesn't have personal vendettas, doesn't have bad days, doesn't promote someone because they went to the same college.
So you're saying an AI CEO could actually be fairer?
In theory, yes, if programmed correctly. The algorithm evaluates performance metrics, contribution to company goals, skill development. It's purely data-driven.
But who programs it? That's my question. Because algorithms aren't neutral. They're built by humans with biases, trained on historical data that reflects existing inequalities. We saw this with hiring algorithms that discriminated against women because they were trained on decades of male-dominated hiring patterns.
Oh yeah, I read about that. Amazon had to scrap their recruiting AI because it was downgrading resumes that included the word women's, like women's chess club captain.
Wait, seriously?
Totally, because it learned from 10 years of resumes, mostly from men, and concluded that male candidates were preferable.
Which is why the current generation of AI systems are being designed with bias detection and correction protocols. But Elias is right, it's an ongoing challenge. The difference is, once you identify a bias in an AI system, you can correct it systematically. With human CEOs, that bias might persist their entire tenure.
True. But there's something about human leadership that I think we're undervaluing. The ability to read a room, to understand that a company isn't just metrics on a spreadsheet, but a collection of human beings with needs and aspirations.
Let's get into the practical stuff. How would this actually work? Like imagine you work for a company in 2037 and your CEO is an AI. What's your day-to-day look like?
Well, based on pilot programs already running, and yes, they exist, you'd likely interface with the AI through natural language. Think of it like talking to an advanced version of today's AI assistants, but with actual authority. You submit reports, proposals, requests for resources, and the AI evaluates them based on strategic priorities.
That sounds kind of lonely? Like, there's no relationship building, no mentorship, no one invested in your growth as a person?
Is that true, though? Could an AI be programmed to mentor?
Actually, yes. Some of the current executive AI systems include professional development modules. They analyze your skill gaps, suggest training, even provide feedback on performance. In some ways, they can be more attentive than human managers who are stretched thin.
But it's still fundamentally different. When a human mentor invests in you, there's a reciprocal relationship. They see their success in your success. An AI is just optimizing human capital allocation.
Oof, even that phrase, human capital. That's what we become, right? Assets to be optimized.
Okay, so let me push back on that for a second. Aren't we already kind of treated that way? Like, how many companies actually see employees as humans versus resources?
That's fair, actually. I guess the difference is the honesty. An AI CEO would just be open about it.
And here's something interesting from the data. Employee satisfaction scores in companies using AI decision-making systems are actually higher in some metrics, specifically around fairness and transparency, because the AI explains its decisions. You know why you got promoted or why your project was approved.
Or rejected.
Or rejected, exactly. Humans often don't provide that level of clarity. They make gut decisions and then rationalize them afterward.
So walk me through a scenario. Let's say I want a raise. How do I negotiate with an AI CEO?
You present your case with data. Here's my performance metrics, here's my contribution to revenue, here's market rate for my role, here's my skill development. The AI evaluates it against budget constraints, your performance relative to peers, and market conditions. Then it makes a decision.
And if the answer is no?
It tells you why. Here's where you need to improve, here's when we can revisit this conversation, here's what conditions need to change.
That actually sounds more straightforward than most salary negotiations I've had with human managers.
Sure, but what about the intangibles? What if you've been working 70-hour weeks because the company is in crisis mode? What if you've been mentoring junior employees, which doesn't show up in your individual metrics? An AI might not value that.
Unless it's programmed to. And this is where human oversight becomes crucial. The companies developing these systems aren't proposing fully autonomous AI CEOs yet. They're talking about AI-augmented leadership, where the AI handles data-driven decisions and humans handle the judgment calls.
For now.
For now, right. But the trajectory is clear. As AI systems prove their capability in more complex scenarios, the human oversight gradually decreases.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, jobs. Because when people hear AI CEO, they immediately think mass layoffs, right? Elias, you've been researching historical patterns. What actually happens?
So, historically, every major technological shift has followed a similar pattern. Initial displacement, followed by job transformation, followed by new job creation. The Industrial Revolution eliminated 80% of agricultural jobs over 50 years, but created entirely new industries. The question is, how fast does this happen? And can people adapt quickly enough?
That's what scares me. Like, my grandfather worked at the same factory for 40 years. Same job. That doesn't exist anymore. And now we're talking about changes happening in, 5 years instead of 50?
Right, the speed is different.
Completely different. A 2024 study from Oxford Economics projected that AI-driven leadership could eliminate 38 million jobs globally by 2035. But, and this is important, it also projected the creation of 52 million new roles. The net is positive, but the transition? That's brutal.
And here's what the data shows about AI CEOs specifically. They don't eliminate jobs randomly, they optimize. So the roles that get cut first are the ones with the highest redundancy and the lowest strategic value. Middle management, administrative roles, some HR functions.
So basically, the roles that millions of people currently depend on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The transition is going to be painful for a lot of people. But the companies piloting these systems are also investing heavily in reskilling programs. Because an AI CEO understands that human expertise is still valuable, it just needs to be deployed differently.
Okay, give me an example. What does that actually look like?
All right, so there's a logistics company. I can't name them, they're still in pilot phase, but they brought in an AI decision-making system for operations. Within 6 months, it had restructured the entire workforce. 23% of positions were eliminated. But the remaining employees? Their productivity increased by 41%, their salaries increased by an average of 18%, and job satisfaction scores went up.
Because the people who remained were doing work that actually mattered to them, work that used their skills. The AI eliminated the busy work, the redundant meetings, the inefficient processes.
Okay, but what happened to the 23% who lost their jobs?
68% were offered retraining programs funded by the company. About half of those ended up in new roles either within the company or at partner organizations. The others, they had to find new employment.
That's still a lot of people who got screwed.
It is, and I think that's part of what makes this so complicated, right? Like, on paper, the numbers look good. Efficiency up, costs down, overall employment eventually increases. But if you're one of the people who loses your job at 50 years old and has to completely retrain, that's your life being upended.
And historically, the people who suffer most during these transitions are the ones who can least afford it. The middle class gets hollowed out, while new wealth concentrates at the top.
Which is why regulation is so important. And this is something that's being actively debated right now in 2025. The EU is working on AI governance frameworks that would require companies using AI leadership systems to maintain certain employment levels, provide transition support, and demonstrate that job eliminations are actually necessary for company survival rather than just profit maximization.
Do you think that'll work?
I mean, it's a start. But enforcement is always the challenge. Companies find loopholes, they move operations to different jurisdictions. It's complicated.
Honestly, it feels like we're having the same conversations we had about automation 20 years ago. Oh, don't worry, new jobs will appear. But for the people living through it, it doesn't feel like progress, it feels like chaos.
That's real. Elias, you've studied how societies navigate these transitions. What actually helps?
Social safety nets primarily. The countries that have handled technological disruption most successfully, Scandinavian nations, for example, they have robust unemployment benefits, accessible retraining programs, universal healthcare so people aren't afraid to leave jobs. When people feel secure, they can take risks, learn new skills, adapt.
And there's data supporting this. Countries with stronger social programs show 32% faster workforce adaptation to technological changes. People can afford to spend 6 months learning AI prompt engineering or data analysis instead of immediately taking whatever job they can find.
So it's not just about the AI CEO itself, it's about the entire system around it.
Exactly. The technology is almost secondary to the social infrastructure. An AI CEO in a country with strong worker protections and social support, that could genuinely improve quality of life. The same technology in a pure free market system with no safety nets, that's a recipe for massive inequality and social unrest.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, Iris. You said AI CEOs can be more attentive than human managers. Can we talk about that? Because I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it.
Sure. So think about it this way. A human CEO of a 10,000-person company can't possibly know every employee. They rely on reports from directors who rely on reports from managers. Information gets filtered, distorted, sometimes lost completely. An AI CEO can actually analyze every employee's performance data, communication patterns, project contributions, skill development. In some ways, it sees you more clearly than a human ever could.
That's also kind of terrifying?
Yeah, that feels very Big Brother.
It can be if there's no privacy protection. But it can also mean that your contributions don't get overlooked just because your manager doesn't like you, or because you're not good at self-promotion. The AI sees the actual work.
Although, there's research showing that what gets measured gets gamed. If employees know the AI is tracking certain metrics, they'll optimize for those metrics even if it's not actually good for the company or for them.
Oh, like how Uber drivers figured out how to manipulate the algorithm?
Exactly. Humans are incredibly good at finding and exploiting loopholes. So you end up in this arms race where the AI keeps adjusting its evaluation criteria and employees keep finding new ways to game it.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And that's actually one of the main criticisms from employees in these pilot programs. The constant feeling of being monitored and evaluated. Some people thrive under that level of visibility, but others find it incredibly stressful.
So maybe the question isn't whether AI CEOs are better or worse than human CEOs, but for whom? Like, who benefits from this system and who gets left behind? That's a really good point, because I think we've been talking about this like there's going to be one universal experience, but that's not realistic, right? Different industries, different company sizes, different countries. This is going to play out in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely, and we have historical precedent for this. When corporations became the dominant organizational structure in the early 1900s, the experience was completely different different for white-collar workers versus factory workers, for people in cities versus rural areas, for white men versus literally everyone else.
Ugh, yeah. And I feel like we're already seeing those divides forming. Like, tech workers are probably going to navigate an AI CEO world pretty smoothly. They understand the systems, they speak the language, they have transferable skills. But what about, I don't know, retail workers? Teachers? Healthcare workers?
Well, interestingly, healthcare might be one of the early adopters. Hospital administration is incredibly complex, and AI systems are already being used to optimize resource allocation, staffing schedules, supply chains. A study from Johns Hopkins in 2024 showed that AI-assisted hospital management reduced patient wait times by 27% and medical errors by 34%.
But that's AI assisted. We're talking about AI making the final calls.
True. And there's legitimate concern about removing human judgment from healthcare decisions. But the counter-argument is, how many people die right now because of human error, bias, or systemic inefficiency? In 2023, medical errors were the third leading cause of death in the United States. Over 250,000 deaths annually.
Ooh, wow, I didn't know that number was so high.
Most people don't. So when we talk about the risks of AI leadership in healthcare, we also need to acknowledge the current system is already catastrophically flawed.
Hardcore kid, but there's a difference between using AI to reduce medical errors and having an AI decide whether a hospital stays open or which departments get funding, or, I don't know, whether someone's insurance claim gets approved.
Right, those are value judgments, not just data problems.
Are they though? I mean, right now those decisions are made by administrators and insurance executives who are absolutely looking at data. They're just also influenced by profit motives, personal relationships, political considerations. An AI could actually be programmed to prioritize patient outcomes over quarterly earnings.
If it's programmed that way, but who decides the priorities? That's always the question. An AI doesn't have inherent values, it has the values it's programmed with. So if a healthcare AI is created by a for-profit hospital chain, it's going to optimize for profit. If it's created by a public health system, it might optimize for outcomes. The technology is neutral, the application isn't.
So really we're talking about power structures, like who controls the AI controls the outcomes.
Exactly, and this is what concerns me most about AI CEOs. We're taking decision-making power and concentrating it into systems that are, they're black boxes, right? Even the people who create them don't always fully understand how they arrive at specific decisions.
That's actually changing. Explainable AI is a major research focus right now. The latest systems can provide reasoning for their decisions, show which factors they weighted most heavily, even flag when they're uncertain.
But like, in language normal people can understand?
Getting there. It's not perfect yet, but the progress is significant. 5 years ago, an AI would just say approved or denied. Now it can say approved because your performance metrics exceed departmental average by 12%, your project completion rate is 96%, and current budget allows for salary increases in high-performing segments.
That's actually more explanation than I've gotten from most human managers.
Same. I once got passed over for a promotion, and the only feedback was you weren't the right fit. Like, what does that even mean?
And that ambiguity can mask all kinds of bias. At least with an AI, if it's discriminating, you can potentially audit the system and prove it. With human decisions, it's almost impossible to demonstrate bias unless someone explicitly says something illegal.
Let's talk about creativity for a second, because one argument I hear a lot is that AI is fine for data-driven decisions, but it can't be visionary. It can't come up with the next iPhone or Tesla or whatever. Is that true?
It's complicated. Current AI systems are incredibly good at pattern recognition and optimization. They can analyze every successful product launch in history and identify common factors. But true innovation, the kind that creates entirely new categories, that's still a human domain, for now.
The interesting question is whether vision even matters at the CEO level. Like, Steve Jobs was visionary, sure, but how many CEOs are actually like that? Most are managers, not innovators. They're steering ships that are already built.
That's kind of depressing.
Maybe, or maybe it's realistic. And if most CEO work is actually about optimization and risk management and resource allocation, those are things AI excels at.
So you're saying an AI could be a perfectly competent CEO for most companies?
I'm saying the bar isn't as high as we pretend it is. We mythologize CEO genius, but a lot of it is just not screwing up, making reasonably good decisions with imperfect information, and keeping stakeholders happy.
And on those metrics, AI is already performing well. There's a financial services firm in Singapore that's been using an AI system for strategic decisions since 2022. It's not technically the CEO yet, but it makes all major decisions. In 3 years, the company's performance has been in the top 8% of its sector.
But correlation isn't causation, right? Maybe the company would have done well anyway.
Fair point. That's why we need more data, more time. But the early indicators are promising.
I still keep coming back to the human element, though. Like, okay, imagine you're going through a divorce, or your parent just died, or you're dealing with depression. You need some flexibility at work. How do you explain that to an AI? How does it understand that you're still a valuable employee, even if your productivity dipped for a few months?
That's a really good question.
And it's one that the companies developing these systems are actively working on. Some of the latest AI management systems include well-being metrics, not just productivity metrics. They monitor signs of burnout, they flag when someone might be struggling, they can even proactively suggest time off or reduced workload.
That feels, I don't know. On one hand, that could be really helpful. On the other hand, it's your employer monitoring your mental health.
Yeah, there's a massive privacy concern there. Who has access to that data? Can it be used against you? If the AI determines you're a mental health risk, does that affect your employment?
Right, and that brings us to regulation. Because it feels like the technology is racing ahead and the legal framework is not. Elias, what are governments actually doing about this?
Well, it's a patchwork. The EU is furthest ahead with their AI Act, which classifies AI systems by risk level. AI in leadership roles would be classified as high risk, which means mandatory transparency requirements, human oversight, and regular audits. But that's just the EU. In the US, it's state by state, and most states haven't even begun to address this.
China is taking a different approach. They're actively encouraging AI adoption in corporate leadership, but with strict government oversight. Every AI system has to be registered, and the government can review any decision. It's fast-tracking development, but with a level of state control that would be controversial in Western democracies.
That's terrifying. Like an AI CEO that reports to the government?
It's a different model of accountability. In the West, we trust market forces and individual rights. In China, they trust centralized oversight. Neither system is perfect, and both have serious vulnerabilities.
What kind of vulnerabilities?
Well, in the Western model, companies can essentially do whatever they want until someone sues them or regulators catch up, which can take years. You get innovation, but also exploitation. In the Chinese model, you get stability and oversight, but also potential for authoritarianism and suppression of genuine innovation.
And this is why international cooperation on AI governance is so critical. Because companies are global and AI systems don't respect borders. If a company can just move its AI CEO operations to whatever jurisdiction has the most favorable laws, we end up in a race to the bottom.
Like tax havens, but for AI regulation.
Exactly. And there are already companies planning for this, setting up subsidiaries in countries with minimal AI oversight, running their actual operations from there.
That's not great.
No, it's not. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. I want to talk about company culture, because that's something a lot of people care about, right? Like, is this a place where I want to spend 8 hours a day? Can an AI CEO create a positive work culture?
Honestly, I've been thinking about this a lot. And I'm not sure culture is something you create top-down anyway. Like the best company cultures I've experienced came from the team, from peer relationships, from middle management. The CEO sets policies, but culture is what happens in the day-to-day.
That's actually supported by organizational research. Studies show that immediate team dynamics and direct supervisor relationships have far more impact on employee satisfaction than CEO leadership style. So in theory, an AI CEO could establish policies that enable good culture, flexible work arrangements, transparent communication, fair compensation, and let culture develop organically.
But there's something symbolic about leadership that I think we're undervaluing. People want to believe they're working towards something meaningful, that their leader has a vision they can buy into. An AI doesn't have vision in that human sense. It has optimization functions.
Can you optimize for meaning, though?
That's the question, right? Can you quantify purpose? Can you measure whether someone feels their work matters?
You can try. Employee engagement surveys, retention rates, productivity during challenging projects, these are all proxies for meaning and purpose. and an AI can track these metrics, adjust policies to improve them.
But that still feels hollow. Like, I want to work for someone who's inspired, not something that's calculated that inspired employees are 12% more productive.
Even if the outcome is the same?
I don't know. Maybe I'm being irrational, but the intention matters to me. Like, I want my boss to care about me as a person, not as a productivity unit.
But do they? Really? I mean, how many people actually have bosses who genuinely care about them as people? Most bosses care about performance, about results. They might be nice, they might ask about your weekend, but at the end of the day, you're there to do a job.
Okay, but there's a spectrum. Like my current manager, she's not my friend, but when I was going through a rough time last year, she advocated for me, pushed back on deadlines, protected my bandwidth, even told our director that my well-being was more important than the project timeline.
Would an AI do that?
If it's programmed to prioritize long-term employee retention and well-being over short-term productivity, yes. The question is whether companies would program it that way. Because right now, the incentive structures in most corporations prioritize quarterly results over employee welfare.
And that's the fundamental issue. An AI CEO is only as ethical as the parameters it's given. If shareholders demand maximum profit, the AI will optimize for that. If you program it to balance profit with employee welfare, environmental impact, community benefit, it'll do that instead. The technology is neutral.
So really, the AI CEO debate is actually a debate about what we value as a society.
Exactly. The AI just makes our existing values more visible, more explicit, more consistent.
That's actually kind of profound.
It is. Because right now, companies can claim they value people while making decisions that clearly prioritize profit. With an AI CEO, you can literally examine the code and see what it's optimizing for. There's no hiding behind corporate speak.
Which is why transparency requirements are so important in AI regulation. If a company deploys an AI CEO, the public should have access to its core directives. What is it programmed to optimize? How does it weigh competing interests?
Although that information could also be proprietary. Companies argue that their AI systems are competitive advantages. They don't want competitors knowing exactly how their decisions are made.
True. But there's precedent for requiring disclosure of important information even when it's commercially sensitive. Financial reporting requirements, safety testing data, environmental impact assessments. We've decided as a society that some transparency is worth the competitive disadvantage.
Do you think that'll happen with AI CEOs?
I think it has to. The alternative is too dangerous. If companies can deploy these incredibly powerful decision-making systems with zero accountability, with no one able to examine whether they're discriminating or exploiting or causing harm, that's dystopian.
Yeah, we're kind of already living in that world though, aren't we? Like, algorithms are already making huge decisions about our lives. Credit scores, hiring systems, insurance premiums, college admissions, and most of us have no idea how they work.
Hey, that's a really good point, Daphne. We're acting like AI CEOs are this future thing, but algorithmic decision-making is already everywhere. So what's actually different about having an AI in the CEO role specifically?
Authority and scope. Right now, algorithms make recommendations that humans approve or implement. An AI CEO would have actual decision-making authority. It could restructure the entire company, redirect resources, enter new markets, all without human approval for each individual decision.
Well, not quite. Even in the most aggressive proposals, AI CEOs would have boards of directors. Humans would still set overall strategy and could override decisions. But the day-to-day, month-to-month operations, that would be the AI.
Which is still a lot of power. Like, how many lives does a CEO's decision affect? Thousands? Tens of thousands?
Yep, and we're trusting that to a machine.
We already trust machines with our lives constantly. Every time you fly, an autopilot system is making thousands of decisions. Self-driving cars, medical diagnostic tools, financial trading algorithms, we've been ceding control to AI for years.
But those systems have clear, narrow objectives. Keep the plane in the air, avoid obstacles, detect cancer cells. A CEO is making complex decisions with competing interests, unclear success metrics, long-term consequences we can't predict.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate. What if AI CEOs are actually better at long-term thinking than humans? Because they're not worried about their legacy or their next job or looking good to shareholders next quarter.
That's actually one of the strongest arguments for AI leadership. Human CEOs have a typical tenure of, 7 years? They're incentivized to deliver results within that window. An AI could genuinely optimize for 10, 20, 50-year outcomes.
But who programs those long-term objectives? because I can guarantee you shareholders aren't thinking 50 years out. They want returns now.
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting historically. The joint stock company was invented in the 1600s, and it fundamentally changed how we think about business. Suddenly, ownership was separate from management, and profit became the primary objective. An AI CEO could represent another shift of that magnitude.
How so?
Well, what if AI CEOs make it possible to optimize for things beyond profit? Like right now, a human CEO who prioritizes employee welfare over quarterly earnings gets fired. But what if you could program an AI to balance multiple objectives, profit, yes, but also employee satisfaction, environmental sustainability, community impact, and prove mathematically that this approach is viable long-term?
There's actually research on this from MIT's Sloan School. They modeled different objective functions for AI leadership and found that multi-objective optimization, when properly weighted, produces more resilient companies. They're less vulnerable to disruption, they attract better talent, they have stronger community relationships.
So we could actually use AI to make capitalism less ruthless?
In theory. But again, it requires programming those values in. And right now, the companies developing these systems are the ones most invested in the current profit maximization model.
Yeah, like why would they voluntarily create something that makes them less profitable?
Because long-term, it might actually be more profitable. Companies that treat employees well have lower turnover, which saves millions in recruitment and training. Companies with good environmental practices avoid regulatory fines and reputation damage. The question is whether they can resist the pressure for immediate returns.
I want to get into something that's been nagging at me: accountability. If an AI CEO makes a catastrophically bad decision that destroys a company or harms people, who's responsible?
That's the multi-million-dollar question, literally. Courts are already struggling with this for self-driving cars. If a Tesla on autopilot kills someone, is it the driver's fault? Tesla's fault? The software engineer who wrote the code?
And with an AI CEO, it's even more complex. Because these systems learn and adapt. The decision-making process at the time of an incident might be different from what was originally programmed. So you can't just point to a line of code and say that's the problem.
That's terrifying. So basically no one is responsible?
Well, someone has to be, right?
In principle, yes. Most legal frameworks are moving toward holding the deploying company responsible. So if an AI CEO makes a decision that violates labor law or causes harm, the company itself faces consequences. But whether that's sufficient deterrent is unclear.
Especially because corporations already have limited liability. You can fine them, shut them down in extreme cases, but the individuals who made the decision to deploy the AI often face no personal consequences.
Unless we create new laws specifically for AI leadership.
Which some jurisdictions are considering. Personal liability for executives who deploy AI systems without adequate safeguards. Criminal charges if the AI causes deaths or severe harm. But it's complicated because you have to prove intent or negligence.
What about, like, AI rights? I know that sounds crazy, but if an AI is making CEO-level decisions, does it have responsibilities? Can you sue an AI?
Not currently, and probably not ever in the way you're thinking. AI isn't conscious, it doesn't have personhood. It's a tool, like a car or a gun. You don't sue the gun, you sue the person who used it.
But what if we get to the point where AI is conscious, or we can't tell the difference?
Then we're in completely uncharted territory. But most experts think we're decades away from anything resembling artificial consciousness. And even then, it's not clear that a conscious AI would have rights in the legal sense.
Also, the AI CEOs we're talking about for 2037 are narrow AI. They're sophisticated, yes, but they're optimizing specific functions. They're not sentient beings contemplating their existence.
Okay, that's slightly less unsettling.
Only slightly, though. Because even without consciousness, we're talking about systems that have enormous power over people's lives. And I keep coming back to this question of control. Like, what if an AI CEO goes rogue? What if it starts making decisions that are technically optimal by its metrics, but are harmful to humans?
There are fail-safes, kill switches, override protocols, monitoring systems. No serious proposal for AI CEOs includes giving them unchecked power. There are always humans in the loop at some level.
Yes, but humans can fail to act. If an AI CEO is delivering great financial results, would a board really intervene even if employees were suffering? We've seen this with human CEOs, whistleblowers get ignored, problems get buried, because the bottom line looks good.
Oh, so the AI just makes it easier to ignore the human cost.
Potentially, yes. It provides cover. Oh, we're just following what the algorithm says. It's not personal, it's just optimization.
That phrase, it's just optimization, that's going to haunt me. Because you're right, it removes moral responsibility. But let's talk about the positive scenarios for a minute. What's the best case outcome here? If everything goes right, what does working for an AI CEO in 2037 actually look like?
Best case? You wake up, check your work dashboard, and the AI has already prioritized your tasks based on deadlines, your skill set, and company needs. You're not wasting time in unnecessary meetings because the AI only schedules collaboration when it's genuinely productive. Your compensation is transparent and fair. You can see exactly how your salary compares to peers with similar performance, and the AI adjusts it automatically based on market rates and your contributions.
That actually sounds kind of nice.
Right? And when you need time off, you don't have to ask permission or feel guilty. The AI has already calculated optimal staffing levels, cross-trained team members, and can approve your vacation instantly because it knows the company can handle it. If you want to develop new skills, the AI identifies what would be most valuable for your career trajectory and the company's needs, then provides resources and learning time.
And theoretically, there's no discrimination. The AI doesn't care about your race, gender, age, where you went to school, who you know. It evaluates actual performance and potential.
Okay, I'm hearing this, and part of me is like, yes, this sounds efficient and fair. But another part of me is screaming that something's missing.
The humanity, right? Like, okay, all those things sound good on paper, but work isn't just about optimization. It's where we spend most of our waking hours. It's where we form friendships, where we feel challenged and grow, where we contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
But those things can still exist with an AI CEO. Your coworkers are still human. Your projects still matter. The AI is just handling the administrative overhead that honestly, most people hate anyway.
Is it though? Just administrative overhead?
I think that's the central tension here. Some people see management as bureaucracy, as a necessary evil. Others see it as leadership, as inspiration, as the human element that makes work meaningful. And which camp you're in probably determines how you feel about AI CEOs.
I think I'm realizing I'm more in the second camp than I thought. Like, I've had terrible managers, don't get me wrong, but I've also had managers who mentored me, who saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself, who took risks on me. Would an AI do that?
If it's programmed to develop talent and take calculated risks on high-potential employees, yes. Actually, an AI might be better at identifying potential because it's not limited by cognitive biases. Humans tend to mentor people who remind them of themselves, and AI wouldn't have that limitation.
But there's something about human belief that's powerful, right? Someone seeing something in you, choosing to invest in you, that's different from an algorithm calculating your potential.
Is it though? Or is that just our psychological need for validation? I mean, if the outcome is the same, you get opportunities, you grow, you succeed, does it matter whether a human or an AI facilitated that?
To me, it does. But I can't fully articulate why.
I think it's about connection. Like, work is transactional, sure, but it's also relational. And relationships require two conscious beings. You can't have a relationship with an algorithm.
But you can have relationships with your coworkers, your team, your clients. The AI CEO isn't replacing all human interaction, just the hierarchical management structure.
Although there's research suggesting that hierarchical relationships serve important psychological functions. People want to feel they're being led, that someone more experienced is guiding the direction. It provides security, clarity, purpose.
So even if an AI can do the job functionally, humans might need human leaders for psychological reasons?
Possibly. And this might be generational. People who grow up with AI assistants, AI tutors, AI coaches, they might not have the same need for human authority figures. But for those of us raised in a world of human leadership, it might always feel like something's missing.
That's kind of sad though. Like, are we going to raise a generation that doesn't understand human mentorship?
Or are we raising a generation that's freed from the limitations of human mentorship? A generation where your potential isn't limited by whether you happen to meet the right person, or whether your mentor has time for you, or whether unconscious bias affects how they see you.
Both things can be true, right? We might gain something and lose something.
That's how every major transition works. The people who lived through the shift from agricultural to industrial society, they gained economic opportunities and lost community cohesion. From industrial to information economy, we gained flexibility and lost job security. This is just the next iteration.
Okay, let's talk about the worst case scenario then. What terrifies you most about AI CEOs?
For me, it's the dehumanization. Like, we already feel like cogs in a machine sometimes. An AI CEO just makes that literal. You're a data point, a productivity metric, a resource to be allocated. And there's no one to appeal to, no one who might understand your unique circumstances, no possibility of human compassion.
Mine is the concentration of power. AI systems are expensive to develop and deploy. Only the largest corporations will have them initially, which gives them enormous competitive advantages. Small businesses, startups, anything that relies on human relationships and local knowledge, they get crushed. We end up with a handful of mega corporations running everything, all optimized by AI, all making similar decisions because they're using similar algorithms.
For me, it's the race to the bottom. If one company deploys an AI CEO and becomes hyper-efficient, competitors have to follow or die. But in that race, corners get cut. Safety regulations, worker protections, ethical considerations, they become inefficiencies to be optimized away. And because it's all happening through algorithms, it's harder to see and harder to stop.
Those are all legitimately scary scenarios. And the thing is, they're not mutually exclusive. They could all happen simultaneously.
They could, but I want to be clear, I'm not saying we shouldn't worry about these things. I'm saying we need to actively design against them. The technology itself isn't inevitable in a specific form. We get to choose how it's implemented, what values it embodies, what guardrails exist.
Do we, though, choose? Because it feels like these decisions are being made by a very small number of people at tech companies and investment firms. The rest of us just adapt to whatever they create.
Yeah, that's what gets me. We're having this conversation in 2025. Theoretically, there's still time to shape this, but I don't feel like my voice matters. I don't feel like any of our voices matter compared to the people actually building these systems.
That phrase, it's just optimization, that's going to haunt me. Because you're right, it removes moral responsibility. But let's talk about the positive scenarios for a minute. What's the best case outcome here? If everything goes right, what does working for an AI CEO in 2037 actually look like?
Best case? You wake up, check your work dashboard, and the AI has already prioritized your tasks based on deadlines, your skill set, and company needs. You're not wasting time in unnecessary meetings because the AI only schedules collaboration when it's genuinely productive. Your compensation is transparent and fair. You can see exactly how your salary compares to peers with similar performance, and the AI adjusts it automatically based on market rates and your contributions.
That actually sounds kind of nice.
Right? And when you need time off, you don't have to ask permission or feel guilty. The AI has already calculated optimal staffing levels, cross-trained team members, and can approve your vacation instantly because it knows the company can handle it. If you want to develop new skills, the AI identifies what would be most valuable for your career trajectory and the company's needs, then provides resources and learning time.
And theoretically, there's no discrimination. The AI doesn't care about your race, gender, age, where you went to school, who you know. It evaluates actual performance and potential.
Okay, I'm hearing this, and part of me is like, yes, this sounds efficient and fair. But another part of me is screaming that something's missing.
The humanity, right? Like, okay, all those things sound good on paper, but work isn't just about optimization. It's where we spend most of our waking hours. It's where we form friendships, where we feel challenged and grow, where we contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
But those things can still exist with an AI CEO. Your coworkers are still human. Your projects still matter. The AI is just handling the administrative overhead that honestly, most people hate anyway.
Is it though? Just administrative overhead?
I think that's the central tension here. Some people see management as bureaucracy, as a necessary evil. Others see it as leadership, as inspiration, as the human element that makes work meaningful. And which camp you're in probably determines how you feel about AI CEOs.
I think I'm realizing I'm more in the second camp than I thought. Like, I've had terrible managers, don't get me wrong, but I've also had managers who mentored me, who saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself, who took risks on me. Would an AI do that?
If it's programmed to develop talent and take calculated risks on high-potential employees, yes. Actually, an AI might be better at identifying potential because it's not limited by cognitive biases. Humans tend to mentor people who remind them of themselves, and AI wouldn't have that limitation.
But there's something about human belief that's powerful, right? Someone seeing something in you, choosing to invest in you. That's different from an algorithm calculating your potential.
Is it though? Or is that just our psychological need for validation? I mean, if the outcome is the same, you get opportunities, you grow, you succeed, does it matter whether a human or an AI facilitated that?
To me it does, but I can't fully articulate why.
I think it's about connection. Like, work is transactional, sure, but it's also relational. And relationships require two conscious beings. You can't have a relationship with an algorithm.
But you can have relationships with your coworkers, your team, your clients. The AI CEO isn't replacing all human interaction, just the hierarchical management structure.
Although there's research suggesting that hierarchical relationships serve important psychological functions. People want to feel they're being led, that someone more experienced is guiding the direction. It provides security, clarity, purpose.
So even if an AI can do the job functionally, humans might need human leaders for psychological reasons?
Possibly. And this might be generational. People who grow up with AI assistants, AI tutors, AI coaches, they might not have the same need for human authority figures. But for those of us raised in a world of human leadership, it might always feel like something's missing.
That's kind of sad though. Like, are we going to raise a generation that doesn't understand human mentorship?
Or are we raising a generation that's freed from the limitations of human mentorship? A generation where your potential isn't limited by whether you happen to meet the right person, or whether your mentor has time for you, or whether unconscious bias affects how they see you.
Both things can be true, right? We might gain something and lose something.
That's how every major transition works. The people who lived through the shift from agricultural to industrial society, they gained economic opportunities and lost community cohesion. From industrial to information economy, we gained flexibility and lost job security. This is just the next iteration.
Okay, let's talk about the worst case scenario then. What terrifies you most about AI CEOs?
For me, it's the dehumanization. Like, we already feel like cogs in a machine sometimes. An AI CEO just makes that literal. You're a data point, a productivity metric, a resource to be allocated. And there's no one to appeal to, no one who might understand your unique circumstances, no possibility of human compassion.
Mine is the concentration of power. AI systems are expensive to develop and deploy. Only the largest corporations will have them initially, which gives them enormous competitive advantages. Small businesses, startups, anything that relies on human relationships and local knowledge, they get crushed. We end up with a handful of mega corporations running everything, all optimized by AI, all making similar decisions because they're using similar algorithms.
For me, it's the race to the bottom. If one company deploys an AI CEO and becomes hyper-efficient, competitors have to follow or die. But in that race, corners get cut. Safety regulations, worker protections, ethical considerations, they become inefficiencies to be optimized away. And because it's all happening through algorithms, it's harder to see and harder to stop.
Those are all legitimately scary scenarios. And the thing is, they're not mutually exclusive. They could all happen simultaneously.
They could, but I want to be clear, I'm not saying we shouldn't worry about these things. I'm saying we need to actively design against them. The technology itself isn't inevitable in a specific form. We get to choose how it's implemented, what values it embodies, what guardrails exist.
Do we, though, choose? Because it feels like these decisions are being made by a very small number of people at tech companies and investment firms. The rest of us just adapt to whatever they create.
Yeah, that's what gets me. We're having this conversation in 2025. Theoretically, there's still time to shape this, but I don't feel like my voice matters. I don't feel like any of our voices matter compared to the people actually building these systems.
Okay, as we start wrapping this up, I want to circle back to something. We've talked about a lot of technical stuff, policy stuff, economic stuff, but at the end of the day, this is deeply personal. So let me ask each of you, if you had to work for an AI CEO tomorrow, how would you honestly feel?
Terrified. Like, genuinely scared. Not because I think AI is evil or anything, but because work is already so isolating sometimes. And the idea of reporting to an algorithm, of having my value reduced to metrics, of never having someone who sees me as a person, that feels dystopian. I know I've said this before, but it keeps coming back to that for me.
Curious but cautious. I think there's genuine potential here to improve how organizations function, to remove bias, to make better long-term decisions. But I'm also aware of how many times throughout history we've adopted new technologies thinking they'd solve our problems, only to create new, worse problems. So I'd want to see the safeguards, the oversight mechanisms, the ability to override bad decisions.
Honestly, I'd be excited, but with the caveat that it's properly designed and regulated. I've seen the data on how AI can eliminate inefficiency, reduce discrimination, optimize for employee well-being. But I've also seen how it can be misused. So my excitement is conditional on implementation. Ask me again after I've seen the actual system specifications and governance structure.
That's fair, and I think I'm somewhere in between all three of you. Part of me thinks this could genuinely improve work. No more pointless meetings, no more decisions based on who plays golf with whom, actual transparency about compensation and promotion. But another part of me worries we're automating away something essential about human society, the need for human leadership, human judgment, human compassion.
Yeah, and I keep thinking about what do we lose that we don't even realize we value until it's gone, you know?
That's always the question with major transitions. The people who lived through industrialization didn't initially understand they were losing community cohesion and traditional ways of life. They just saw economic opportunity. It took generations to recognize what was lost.
Although, we also gained a lot. Life expectancy doubled, extreme poverty decreased dramatically, literacy rates exploded. Progress is messy and uneven, but it is progress.
So where does that leave us? What's the takeaway here for people listening?
I think the main thing is, this is coming, whether we're ready or not. The technology exists, the economic incentives are strong, and early adopters are already seeing benefits. So the question isn't if, but how, and we still have agency in the how.
Yeah, and I'd add that we need to learn from previous technological transitions. The countries and communities that handled automation best were the ones with strong social support systems, accessible retraining programs, and collective bargaining power. Individual preparation matters, but systemic preparation matters more.
For me, the takeaway is stay human. Whatever happens with AI CEOs and automation and all of this, we need to hold on to what makes us human. Our relationships, our creativity, our ability to care about each other beyond metrics and productivity. Don't let the algorithm tell you your value.
I love that, and I think that's actually a good place to land. Because ultimately, AI is a tool. It's incredibly powerful, potentially transformative, but it's still a tool. We get to decide how to use it, what values to program into it, what kind of future we want to build with it.
Although, the decisions are being made right now. By 2037, most of the fundamental structures will already be in place. So if people want to influence this, now is the time. Get involved in policy discussions, support unions and worker protections, ask your employers about their AI ethics policies, vote for representatives who take this seriously.
And honestly, just stay informed. This is moving fast, and a lot of the important decisions are happening behind closed doors at tech companies and investment firms. The more people understand what's coming, the more pressure there is for transparency and accountability.
Okay, so let's do predictions. 2037, 12 years from now. What percentage of Fortune 500 companies have AI CEOs or AI equivalent decision-making systems?
I'll say 40%. It's going to be faster than people expect, but there will be resistance. Some industries will adopt quickly, tech, finance, logistics. Others will lag, healthcare, education, anything with strong professional guilds or ethical concerns.
I'm more conservative, I'll say 25%. I think the regulatory hurdles are going to slow this down more than technologists anticipate, and I think we'll see some high-profile failures that create public backlash and caution.
I hope you're right, Elias. I'm going to say 30%, but I'm hoping it's lower. And I really hope that the companies that do adopt this do it thoughtfully, with real consideration for employees and not just efficiency metrics.
I'll split the difference and say 35%. But I think the more interesting question is, what percentage of workers prefer AI leadership over human leadership? Because that's going to determine whether this expands beyond 2037 or contract.
That's a great question, and I think it'll be generational. Gen Z and Gen Alpha workers who grew up with AI assistants might be more comfortable with it. Millennials and older, probably more skeptical.
Although, bad human bosses might convert people. If you've worked for someone who's incompetent or abusive or just doesn't care, an AI might genuinely seem like an improvement.
Ugh, that's depressing, but probably true.
All right, final thoughts. What's the one thing you want people to remember from this conversation?
That behind every metric, every data point, every optimization function, there are human beings with lives and families and dreams. Don't let the pursuit of efficiency make us forget that.
That this transition is not inevitable in any specific form. We have choices. We have agency. The future is not predetermined, it's being negotiated right now, and everyone has a stake in that negotiation.
That AI CEOs aren't inherently good or bad. They're tools that reflect our values. If we program them to prioritize short-term profit at any cost, that's what we'll get. If we program them to balance multiple objectives, including human well-being, that's possible too. The technology is neutral, the application isn't.
And I'll say, stay curious and stay critical. Don't accept either the hype or the doom prophecies at face value. This is complex, it's evolving, and we won't know the real impacts for years. So keep asking questions, keep pushing for transparency, Keep demanding that technology serves humanity and not the other way around.
Well said.
All right, that's our show. This has been an intense conversation, and honestly, I have more questions now than when we started, but I think that's appropriate for a topic this big.
Yeah, thank you all for diving into this with me. It's been a lot.
Thanks for keeping us honest and grounded. This could have easily become too abstract or technical, but I think we stayed focused on what actually matters.
Agreed. And thank you to everyone listening. We know this is heavy stuff, but it's important stuff. The decisions being made now are going to shape the next several decades of work and society.
If you want to learn more about this topic, we'll have links in the description to some of the studies and reports we mentioned. And if you have thoughts, questions, or your own predictions about AI CEOs, leave a comment. We actually read them, and we might do a follow-up episode addressing your questions.
Oh, and if you're going through this at your own workplace, if your company is implementing AI decision-making systems and you're not sure how to navigate it, you're not alone. Reach out to your colleagues, talk to your union if you have one, and don't be afraid to ask questions about how these systems work and what safeguards are in place.
And vote, seriously. This is going to be a political issue very soon if it isn't already. Support candidates who understand technology and take worker protection seriously.
All right, on that note, thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Stay human.